So I found a new trail that I want to explore. So we're gonna go check it out. Also sharing shots that I captured while exploring this trail. I'm gonna also share with you all a story. And while this story has absolutely nothing to do with the beautiful scenery that I'm sharing with you, what it does reveal, however, is why I'd rather spend my time on New Year's Eve hiking trails such as this than in the club and drinking and celebrating. It's because of views like these. Although I probably suffered a little PTSD from the things that I endured, I'm grateful that I survived. And there were many valuable lessons learned from going through these things. Getting out in nature and photography helped to ground me and recenter myself. Praise and glory be to God for bringing me through so I could share my testimony. His grace and mercy is unbound. Before I continue with part 2 of my testimony of how I was gangstalked and harassed by a gang of what I perceive to be beasts, I want to mention here that the events that I experienced at this juncture of my life changed my life. It changed the way that I view the world, as well as the people in it. I am convinced that the Holy Bible exposes the truth about what I experience and the reality of this world as we stand today. The things that happened to me were made to be covert and go unnoticed, designed to push me to the edge, to do something reckless that will result in either me going to prison or facing a situation of life and death. This was a collective effort of multiple secret societies that worked against me. Now, before I finish crying wolf, no pun intended, I want to add here that during this whole juncture in my life, I definitely did things and said things to a lot of people that definitely added fuel to the fire of my situation and made it worse. And I do bear part responsibility on several levels for several reasons for a lot of what happened to me. But I also feel that I didn't deserve all of the labels that were placed on me or the extremes that people went to in order to see my demise. I've definitely made my mistakes in learning in this life. I've been guilty of being a reprobate-minded sinner. But the crazy thing about that is the same is true for every single person that took part in playing God in my life. The difference is they belong to the in crowd, and I did not. At the end of the day, though, none of these things would have happened to me had I been in alignment with God's perfect will for my life. I'm sharing my testimony because targeting and gang stalking has gotten out of control by the secret societies in America. I believe that there are millions, if not billions, of people's lives all over the world that are affected by this, who are targeted by the gatekeepers and members of these secret groups, unjustly led by people who are immoral. The relationship that I had developed with AT was not normal. In fact, AT was not just an ordinary random girl that I had met. There was something that was just a little odd and off about her and our interactions with each other, and I just couldn't quite put my finger on it. The reason why I was able to get along in Greens Point with no real issues for so long until that point was because I really stayed to myself. I stayed out the way. Usually I had a job, I would go to work and come home. Which is why I was confused about why I was being targeted. But one thing that I knew for sure is that I was being targeted and toyed with. So I played along with this game that was being played with me and was telling myself, in order to uncover the truth, to understand why exactly these people had this interest in me. AT and I, we would have the strangest conversations, talk for hours, and we would have the craziest fights when we fought. It was like a war of wit and mind games between us, with each of us fighting for control of the relationship. Through her actions and our crazy conversations, it was clear to me that she was trying to break me, while I was trying to squeeze any bit of information that I could out of her that will reveal the truth of the situation and understand why they were coming for me. Looking back on it, it was a game that I wish I hadn't played. I've said a lot of things that I wish I could have took back. I revealed way too much to her about myself and about my family. But I was able to eventually piece together most of the story based off of my interactions with AT. I had to come to understand something very important. That it wasn't AT personally who was involved in attacking me, who I was involved in this relationship with, but it was the spirit behind the person. When I came to this realization, I stopped taking the attacks and the things that she would come at me with so personally, and I actually realized that she was a victim herself in all of this. The more I communicated with AT throughout this whole entire ordeal, the more I realized that she was just a pawn in me being targeted, and that the real enemies were the puppet masters behind manipulating AT to act the way that she did and say the things that she did. Before I met her, AT was an aspiring rap artist from Houston, Texas, and it was her associations from living that life that were the culprits behind targeting me. This all went on for about 3 to 5 years, and the targeting actually followed me to several cities in the United States. During this time frame, I was watched and followed by people in the physical. I was watched, followed, and harassed on social media. My personal YouTube account was manipulated. My personal Google account that's linked to my personal cell phone device was manipulated and also compromised. I experienced several strange encounters with people in the communities that I lived in and several jobs that I worked. Some of my personal belongings were even taken or disappeared during this whole ordeal. I was unlawfully arrested and thrown into jail in Houston, Texas, framed for serious crimes that I had nothing to do with, driven to homelessness, and made to think that I was crazy for believing what I knew was true. These groups used heavy witchcraft against me. My identity was compromised and used for other people's gains and profit. Ideas of mine were stolen and utilized with other people taking credit for it. And this was all being driven and orchestrated by a secret coven of witches and warlocks. I mentioned in the first part of my testimony about 2 groups of thugs. The first group of thugs with members in it that are family members of mine, and the second group of thugs being the group of thugs that came up against me during this whole ordeal that started in Houston. Both of these groups are involved in a secret network in the United States of secret groups and covens. This secret society is comprised of street dudes and females, gangsters, pimps, drug dealers, producers, singers, hip-hop and R&B, and rappers, struggling and successful from all over the country and all over the world. This is only one of the secret societies that came up against me to orchestrate my demise, but this particular one that I'm referring to of street dudes is the one that really did the most to try to make sure that I didn't survive. And because many of these street dudes that were involved in this belong to other secret societies, i.e. the Masons, I found myself up against a huge network of people who held all kinds of different positions in society, including people who were involved in law enforcement, which is a big reason why I feel like I never received proper justice for the things that I went through. There is no doubt that the law was broken in this situation and my rights violated. But the questions still remain. Why me? Why was I targeted? The answer is because a member from that first group of thugs, a family member of mine, stole my inheritance and wanted to make sure that I was silenced and never figured out what was really going on. This particular individual was a member of this secret society and felt like that this gave him power in order to initiate these things into my life. Off on the side of a mountain somewhere. What I love about it out here is it's so quiet. So we made a deal in order to make it happen. What ensued was the worst 3 to 5 years of my entire life, by far the darkest days of my life. I want to share my testimony because I know that I'm not the only one that has gone through things like this at the hands of groups like this in this country. Nor do I feel like that my situation was the worst case. I made it out. I survived. Even though I wasn't meant to, I survived. But I suspect that there's been millions of people over the last 2 to 3 decades that have been victims at the hands of groups like this all over the country, who have lost their lives or even been thrown in prison and had no clue what they were up against. And I believe that there are still millions of people currently going through similar things that I went through. And even if they realize that something's off or strange, may not be completely aware of exactly what's going on. Really, there's no need for me to do this. I have an amazing career. I'm engaged in amazing opportunity currently, where I could probably go on and happily live the rest of my life out and be fine. But I knew that it was ill intent against me and I wasn't supposed to survive. My life was supposed to either be cut short or I was supposed to be thrown into prison. There's a lot of people still to this day calling me a crazy person. And hey, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I feel like that fits their narrative to keep certain things secret. In this video, I didn't reveal very many details of my specific story, but I kind of felt like I wanted to lay the groundwork with the information provided in this video. In the next coming videos, I'll be revealing more details of my specific story and also how scripture from the Holy Bible applies and exposes the things that I experienced, as well as the strange times that we're all living in. God's word is real, and the Holy Bible no doubt exposes the wicked world that we're living in. So what is the mark of the beast in the beast system? The Holy Bible clearly exposes this. Stay tuned as I explain how in future content. The Matrix is failing and tribulation is near. The time to get right with God is right now.